For today's webinar, we will be looking at marketing best practices for builders large and small, and renovators, and I guess anyone who is running a business that is picking up the nail bag, the nail gun, the hammer, and getting the job done. This today's presentation will be an overview where over the course of time I'll be digging deep into pretty well every aspect of every slide that we have. So this is very much an overview, and we can get very deep very quickly, but I'll try to limit it to some best practices, some overviews. To start this conversation, I guess this got spurred on with a conversation I had with some renovation builders locally, and just what started as a few helpful bits and pieces turned into a bit of a session that I believe is probably helpful for all builders at all stages, if not to start marketing properly, but at least to, I guess, tick the checklist and make sure that we're doing everything right, top to bottom. So that is going to be the overview of what we're doing today. And let's kick right in with the most daunting aspect of marketing and potentially running a business, which is starting with the budget. Now, I start with the budget because the budget will determine what you are going to achieve overall, and it helps, I guess, at the start to go, this is what we are allocating to marketing, so we understand what kind of things we want to achieve, what kind of goals we want to reach, and where our business is at and what we can afford, but also what we want to achieve is different for each business. So just to break down, a small building business is generally spending 5 to 10% of gross revenue on marketing. If you are in a high growth or a competitive market, that can nationally looks between 12 and 20%. If you are with a franchise builder, what you end up spending is between 1 to 3% of the gross construction contract value. Now, there's some big differences in percentages. Franchise builders will definitely be able to lean on the national brand that they have, and also requires, I guess, less work because the collateral that's being used for that franchise builder is being used for all franchise builders. So the work is essentially either less or can be multiplied throughout if it's something new. Hence why that number is a bit smaller. My suggestion when I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law was to start with 1%. They hadn't allocated anything for marketing. It was impromptu, it was reactionary, and I just said, hey, let's just start by putting 1% into an account so that you have something to pull from, so that when we start this journey, there is something there to work with. So depending on what you're aiming to achieve, very much depends, but my deep sense is that set a budget straight away. What I see a lot of the time is people like myself have conversations with builders and they don't go even past this step. They like the idea of marketing, they like the idea of getting more leads, building their pipeline, maintaining their pipeline, but when push comes to shove, they don't act in the first step, which is, I guess, financially supporting the direction of the business. So I encourage you after this time to have a legitimate think about, okay, what am I setting up for my business? This is a long-term, this budgetary item, this line item on your budget is something to prolong the existence of your business. And I believe the percentages would change over time depending on what you're aiming to achieve. But we need to have the real conversation. What am I putting aside? What does that look like? Am I in a highly competitive market where I need to spend more? They're real questions. Once we set our percentage, once we have that sorted, my question was, what is the goal? And so the goal shifts of marketing depending on where your business is at within your idea of what success looks like. Do you need to establish your brand and community recognition? Is this a new business? Will this take a higher percentage of revenue to kickstart this? Are you in the pipeline filling stage? Are you needing leads desperately to start this journey? Are you in the pipeline maintenance stage? Okay, can we dial back marketing? Are we happy with what's coming in we need to maintain? Okay, what if that's the goal? We're going to take a different approach and a different budget. Are we expanding the business? Are we growing? Are we looking to add more and do more? Well, that's going to shift the budget. That's going to shift the expectations. That's going to shift what we're aiming to do. So having a goal, realistic, and again, this goal shifts depending on where the success of your business is at. But it's good today to go, what is the goal? Where am I at? Am I in maintenance? Do I need to fill that pipeline? Am I expanding, or am I right at the start? Your marketing foundation. So we've gone from budget, we've gone from having a plan. Now we need to understand what our foundation is and what we're applying for. It's not just a one step or a one act deal. There are many elements to marketing that we need to do. So to build effective marketing, business needs to have its own marketing foundation solid. We need a quality website. We need to have a solid email marketing database that's connected. We need to have our social media accounts sorted. We need to make sure those are connected. We need a Google My Business account. Google Maps and searching for businesses is still one of the most searched things for finding businesses to work. Have I got a physical brand presence? Am I setting up a digital ad spend accounts? So these are things that are like from the get-go we need to be working on. Once we know our budget, once we know our plan, this is the next step. Ticking these 6 boxes, making sure we have these building blocks to build our foundation. We have our building blocks in place. What does this structure look like? What does our marketing home, if you would, look like? We need to have a voice. We need to have a brand. We need to have something that people can connect to. So before we put anything into motion, we need to clarify and confirm your voice and your brand. Who are we trying to talk to? How are we trying to talk to them? What do we want them to experience? These are all real questions that a lot of small business owners and large business owners don't ask themselves. There is a massive difference between being a project builder or project home builder to being a boutique, large luxury home builder, to being a renovator, and everything in between. There's different tones, different people, different demographics, and they make a big difference in how we present to market and who we want to attract and get into our pipeline. So in this step, I encourage businesses to build a business culture profile. In what we deliver through iGyro, there are 5 main parts to the business culture profile. We have a mission statement, we have a value statement, we have a purpose statement, we have a connection statement, and an aesthetic statement. And when we flesh these out, we get a very detailed picture of who we are, who we want to talk to, what we want to look like, what we want to sound like, and we can take that information and then be able to communicate that to customers, our staff, our suppliers and trades, our stakeholders. You would be very surprised how much I hear of people chopping and changing suppliers and trades because they don't fit the culture of the business, but that culture has never been communicated to those suppliers and trades. There would be so many headaches sorted that when you bring on a staff member, that if they don't understand that we have a certain aesthetic, we dress a particular way, we look a particular way, we build a particular way, this is what we do, and that staff isn't going to comply, we could save ourselves so much headaches. In terms of customers, once we know how we connect people, how we want them to feel, how we want them to leave when we've had an experience, but that helps building those leads. That helps connecting the right people to your business for them to come on board and you to build the homes and do the building work that you need to build. So it is very important to do a business culture profile for yourself as a business owner so that you can communicate the things you need to communicate from the get-go. It's going to make a whole lot of sense and a whole lot of ease in your life and in your work for all the people that you deal with. An effective lead strategy. This was one of the conversations that we had with my brother-in-law, who's renovating. He's got a pretty good business, but they're just starting this marketing journey. They've done lots of builds for people they know, some for people they don't. They're getting the wheels turning. It's looking good, but they need to build that little. So they ask the question, well, what's effective? Obviously, number one, word of mouth. You cannot beat word of mouth when it comes to people spending $50,000 to $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million with you. Word of mouth and the trust that someone has that you've delivered for them. Nothing beats that. And that happens organically. We can't control it. We don't know when it happens, but we find out later when it has happened because someone says, oh, so-and-so was talking to me. It is the best thing. The next step, and these are the things that we can control, are reviews on Google and Facebook. People that can easily see what you're aiming to do, or, people can easily see what people are saying about you through Google, through Facebook. Massive. That's the next step. A physical presence. Site signs, car signage, promotional documents. I actually put this before web presence and digital media, traditional media, all that kind of stuff. Why? Because the amount of times I hear people that will come off the street because a builder's doing work in the neighborhood and they're seeing the work that's being done. They're driving past, they're seeing the trades, they're seeing action. It is so important to have that site, have the site that you're working on be something that's marketable. It's very important to have that. Your web presence, website, social media, blogs, email marketing, and then we move into paid digital advertising, traditional media advertising, and community presence. We'll touch on a little bit of those a bit more in depth after. Time for action. And I'm just going to go through a couple little action items that I'm going to leave with you today that you can do, I guess, regardless of where you're at. Now, you may already be doing these things. Fantastic if you are. Unreal. But if you're not, here's some things to take away and do to help you on your marketing journey. First thing, get those reviews. Can't stress this enough. And it is honestly, from what I've experienced, it's one of the hardest aspects of it's one of the most important, and it's one of the hardest to get. Because one, you want to make sure that person's going to give you a 5-star review. You're going to want to make sure that person's going to say the nice things about you. And so you may have to go door to door for the people that you worked with in the past, click on their phone or send them the link to your Google My Business profile and watch them do it and coach them do it. It could be to that level. Now, there's other ways to do it. You could send them a link on their phone. You can send them through emails. There's lots of ways to be able to do this. Google and Facebook make it very easy where they have direct links to those businesses so you can have those people fill them out. So make it as easy as possible for people. If you feel a person might love working through email, send it through email. Someone might love talking on the phone, ring them up, ask them to do it with them over the phone. They might deal with SMS, they might be a big texter, and that's how they communicate. Sense, whatever the method is, make it as easy as possible for people. If you need to reward and incentivize, do it. I don't know how this is very creative for how you may want to do this. Could be a bowl of champagne, could be a 6-pack of beer. I don't know. But it is worth the reward and the incentive to those people to get other people talking about your business the way that you believe in your business. So let's get those reviews. No cost. Start sharing your story. We have our Meta accounts, our Instagram, our Facebook. We can link those up. We can be posting once a week, and we can set those things up so they post on both. 3 years ago, I would be saying, don't post the same thing on both. Today, post them on both because different audiences are going to see that. The audience on Instagram, it's not on Facebook. It is fine to be posting the same thing on both. It's going to different people. So let's get that cross-posting going once a week at a minimum. Start sharing your story. I'm on site. I'm doing this, we're doing that. This is where we're at. Start sharing insight and projects on your website. Upload a blog at least once a month. It was crazy to be living in a town with 60, 70, 80,000 people, more builders than you could imagine, and yet, and builders that have been in business for 40, 50, 60 years, up until builders that are brand new. Very few are updating their website. Very few are updating their blogs. And the ones that are ranking organically straight off the bat and crushing it. And they're the ones that people will be, if they're typing in, looking for jobs, they're the ones that people are going to go to. Why? Because Google's saying these guys are active. These guys are doing what they're doing. It's important for us to share insight and projects on our website at least monthly. Keep Google interested in us so that when people search, they find us. Make sure you're using the right words to target the right people digitally, which is, it's a long way to say search engine optimization. And so ensure your website is speaking to the right people, using those keywords for your demographic. Again, if I'm a project builder, the words that I'm going to use are going to be budget, are going to be family focused. There's going to be specific words I'm going to be using for project. There's going to be specific words I'm going to be using for high-end, luxury, boutique, up this end. We don't want the high-end looking at us if I'm targeting project. I don't want if I'm wanting someone to spend $1.5 million on a build. I don't want first-time buyers looking at me. It's a waste of my time. I want the right people looking at me. If I'm a renovation builder, what am I putting in? What am I kitchen? Am I doing decks? Am I doing whole homes? Are we doing knockdown rebuilds? It's important to get the right words on our website so that when people search on Google, they can find us. That's a no cost. Takes a bit of time. It needs to be done. Once-off costs, fence signage, site signage, vehicle signage. Get these done for your business. I'm working with a fence signage place now that's reasonably priced. We've got site signs, a reasonably priced site signage guy. So for call flutes, we can make them look good. Vehicle signage, you do that with your local deal, but once it's done, it's done. Budget that, get it done. It is something free advertising around town, and it's something that you pay once. Fence signage, that might last 2-3 years if you treat them right. Site signage, same deal. So do that. Promotional booklets, again, like we're dealing with printers. We have a good deal. I think it was a shy of $200 for 50 booklets, and they should be getting sent to every lead. Someone rings up, you get their address, boom, send a promotional booklet. Have them sitting in the car. People come up on site, they're interested. Here's a promo booklet. This is about me. Take it home. These are one-off costs. Promotional booklets you'll run out with, obviously, potentially, and then you'll purchase more. But to get set up, let's get that going. The recurring costs. This is where your 1%, 5%, 10%, 20% budget for marketing. This is where the majority of the money is going to go on a month-to-month basis. Digital advertising is fantastic because we can measure what specific ads work. We can see how they connect to our website, and we can see those leads come in directly from what's happening. I love digital advertising from a no waste perspective. If I'm using traditional advertising and I have a billboard in town, I don't know. I'll never be able to know unless someone says, I saw your billboard and that's why I wanted to build with you. I don't know if those words have actually ever been said like that, though. So traditional advertising, as widespread as that may be, it's very difficult for me to go, is this working the way that I hope it's working? I'm not writing it off. I'm just saying that I will go digital advertising first. And if my budget allows, look at radio, look at billboard signage, look at TV, or what's next. I would probably do community advertising prior to traditional advertising and connecting with people, especially if I was a builder. I know that it works well in the community. I know a lot of builders in my town do a lot of community advertising, supporting sport clubs and charitable work and bits and pieces. And so that's a deal. So look, that's some action. Once-offs, all that kind of stuff. This is a very, very quick oversight for marketing, and I can't wait to delve further into some of these things and go a bit more specific over time through iGyro. But that is today's webinar for iGyro and for marketing. I'm happy to open up this floor for any specific questions now, if anyone has any. No, we've all learned something. Get off this call, set a budget. If you haven't set a budget, if not, hopefully you've taken some notes and gone, okay, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing this, and start putting things into action. I want to thank everyone for your time, and we hope to see you soon.